Hey everybody, it is Upcoming Author here. Thank you for once again tuning into my page. So what we're going to do now is some new content. As I told you all last time, I am now officially caught up on all my books, so that is a-okay. So with that, now I get to do a little bit different type of content going forward in terms of what I want to share with y'all. And it's still going to be on the realm of getting caught up. It's just now I'll be able to kind of go over some of the things that I've been working with. So we are going to do some book reviews today. So let's check into the first one. Our first book review is Christopher Paolini's Murtagh. So with Murtagh, this is the first installment into the inheritance cycle within quite a few years. For me, it's been about 12 years since I've actually read anything in terms of the inheritance cycle. I know there was I think it's called like The Witch, The Snake, and something else. I don't know. I just completely butchered out. Please don't come at me. But it was like a collection of short stories in the world of Allegasia that built the world up a little bit more. I didn't get to read that one yet. I probably need to go read it. I know I will. I'm sorry. But with that being said, Murtagh is my first book in 12 years. Fun fact, Inheritance came out when I got married almost 13 years ago. And my wife and I went on a trip with our in-laws for Thanksgiving. And I read that book the whole entire cart ride. Wonderful book. Absolutely loved it. So Murtagh takes place it ends about nearly a year after the defeat of Galbatorix. Murtagh and Thorn are still fugitives because they haven't actually been proven innocent. If you remember anything about the original series, Murtagh and Thorn were forced to serve Galbatorix because they swore fealty to him in the ancient language, which means they had to do what he tells them to do. So overall, Murtagh and Thorn aren't responsible necessarily for what happened in the original series, but unfortunately, because the court of public opinion and it never actually stood trial, they're fugitives and not really on the run, but they're not also really exposing themselves to anybody else unless they absolutely have to. The big part of the series was they helped defeat Galbatorix, right? But because they never actually got the chance to tell everybody that, and it was going to be hard to help the world of Allegasia really understand their part in the overall suffering of so many people, they kind of just decided, hey, we're going to go do our own thing. Nasuda, the queen, and then Aragon and Saphira obviously kind of let them go off, do their own thing, and you don't really want to worry about them because, again, it wasn't really their fault. That's the one thing I really love about this book. If I had to describe this book basically in like one phrase, I would say that the road to redemption isn't any easier just because you weren't at fault. The book spends a lot of time delving into Murtagh's past, how he was raised in court, his relationship more with his father, why his father was so abusive, and that the fact that his father wasn't the only people he took abuse from. Yes, not just Galbatorix either. It was also some of the other boys that are being raised in the royalty realm of Urumbian. I probably butchered that, and I am so sorry. But basically, it really goes into his history and who he is and why he made the decisions that he made and led him to serving Galbatorix in the first place. This also really speaks to Thorn and also how Murtagh had to feel Thorn being tortured, feel Thorn basically fight for survival and not be really able to help him because obviously a dragon rider and his dragon had that mental connection that's very strong. They feel each other's emotions, but they didn't get the chance to actually be together in the same way that Saphira and Aragon were able to be together. And so with that, it gives them a different insight in showing that they really actually are just trying to survive. And so the two of them are trying to figure out how to balance being fugitives who are frankly innocent while also trying to deal with their past trauma and move forward and learn what it means to actually be a dragon and a rider in a world that looks at them as people who can and should be heroes. What also really stands out here is the drummer, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, and the witch Bacall. They are frightening, and they're frightening because we don't necessarily get an actual answer to who they are. And what do I mean by that? I mean that we understand that the typical villain ideas, right? They want to take over the world. They want to remake it in their own image. They believe they're right. They believe it is their God-given right to move everybody else out of the way and do what they're supposed to do. But it's not really made clear by the ending if what they were going to do is actually going to come to pass. There's visions, there's prophecies, there's a lot of things that come into play. We don't really understand exactly what is happening in terms of their plans for the world. And because of that, it's an open ending. But also because of that, it means the story's not over. Yes, surprise. This is not just a standalone book. It is actually a book that sets up that more is coming for the world of Allegasia. I'm not on Twitter anymore. It's X now. I don't want to be there. And I'm not really on Threads because it's not there yet. But if Christopher's announced it, cool. If he hasn't, as far as I know, he hasn't. And this book is definitely opened up to more stories are coming. To be absolutely frank, it just comes down to the fact that Murtagh, he's here to stay. And so with that, overall, we don't get a resolution to the drama and what Bacall was trying to do. So it's set up. This is a standalone book and it's set up for more to come. They're actually telling my wife this, as we were talking about last night. I would compare Murtagh to basically Cara Marie Moning's Ice book. If you know about the Fever series, in the Fever series, you have Michaela Lane is the main character until we get to Ice. And in Ice, it switches over to Danny Mega O'Malley. And with that, we get to look at Danny, who she is, and it leads her from being a cool side character to being a main character going forward. And once Danny's a main character, the whole entire Fever series kind of opens up in terms of what happens with Mac, what happens with Danny, Baron, Ryuden, and all the other 9, everything like that, and what the World of the Fae does. I'm getting off topic here, but I'm using it as an example. If you know the Fever series, that was the turning point to showing that it wasn't just about a couple of characters, it was about the whole cast. And that's what we get with Murtagh. Whatever's coming next, he can't deal with this on his own. And he's gonna need help. Not only is he gonna need help, but he's gonna need the help of the Dragon Riders. And so that makes me excited for what's next. What else can I say? Uvek, the Urgle, he is a great new character. He's interesting and mysterious. It'll be interesting to see where Chris takes him going forward because he's not done. And the Werecat, Carabelle, she's another great addition. I actually really enjoyed her little arc and what it comes down for her. And it also shows that Murtagh is now making his own allies in this world where he's seen as a traitor on both ends. And he's just trying to make it so he and Thorn don't have to worry about anybody else. Now, that being said, I've sung a lot of praises for Murtagh. I do have one gripe. This is my one gripe. This right here. This is over 100 pages where basically, in my opinion, nothing happens. So let's talk about the hero's journey, right? Everyone knows in the hero's journey, there is a point in the story where the hero either fails or he loses, gets beat up, maybe dies, gets captured, is framed, whatever. Something, it's the downfall of the hero. And it leads to the anticipation of helping the hero overcome those challenges to becoming a better person and going forward and succeeding in their hero's journey. Or if you're that kind of writer, you make them lose even worse. And then when they lose worse, then it leads to the next book where hopefully they get the redemption. So for me, in a standalone book, I understood in hindsight what Christopher was trying to do in those 100 pages. He was trying to show that Murtagh and Thorn really are just about surviving all the crap they've been through. but nothing really happens in those 100 pages. I kid you not. There was probably, most likely, maybe 2 scenes that were worth it. And that was, again, really showing how Thorn and Murtagh are survivors. And then what is the catalyst for helping Murtagh really start pushing to free them. Other than that, it drags on. So I get what Chris was trying to do. I really do. I really understand it. I just felt like it could have been faster. So now, that being said, it did not ruin the book for me. It's still a phenomenal book. I really enjoyed it. From beginning to end, I really enjoyed what I was reading. It's just those 100 pages, I'm just like, And yes, 100 pages is a lot, but in a 700-page book, it's not that much. And like I said, there were a couple scenes that lead into things being better or bringing the understanding of why those scenes were there. So we'll see what happens next. I really enjoy that Murtagh is really about just showing how they're going to survive, but really getting on those steps to redemption. And it's not going to be easy. It's not their fault what happened. You could say, well, they chose to swear fealty and that's why they did all that stuff. Okay, yeah, you can say that. Cool, they made that choice, but they made that choice to survive. And sometimes when you're in a situation and when you've been raised in your life to just constantly have to look over your shoulder, you're going to do what you need to do to survive. And Murtagh and Thorn, it shows in this book, they learned from that mistake. And one of the things I really love is they swore they would never, ever swear to anybody else. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to see what comes next from Murtagh and Thorn. It's definitely set up to where it's going to be a whole cast of characters. The Dragon Riders are going to be needed for whatever this new threat is. This threat that apparently is worse than Galbatorix. So we'll see what happens. But other than that, that is it for right now. I do have another book for you. I read 2. So look for part 2 and we'll talk about it then. Other than that though, I'm an upcoming author. Thank you for once again getting caught up with me. Pick up Murtagh if you haven't yet, and let me know in the comments what you guys thought about the book. Peace. One more thing I forgot to mention, and as you can see, I am wearing a completely different shirt now from the last video in a completely different area because I shot for like 2 hours last night because my microphone was off in the first time I shot, so that was fun. Anyways, so one thing I want to mention about Murtagh that I thought was awesome is in the relationship between Murtagh and Thorn. Thorn's an enabler. Murtagh is constantly doing stuff that puts him in. Murtagh is constantly doing stuff that puts him and Thorn into dangerous situations that almost cost their lives. And like in the book, when everything's said and done, like Murtagh apologizes, and Thorn's like, it happened and we're alive. And I'm just like, what? Stop letting them get away with this. Because in the original series, Saphira didn't take none of Aragon's crap. She called him out all the time when he was acting stupid. Like, all the time. So it's interesting to see the dynamic between Thorn, who's kind of like, it is what it is, we're alive, you know, whatever, it's all good. And Saphira is just like, if you don't knock that crap off, I will be riderless. I will kill you myself. Anyway, that's what I wanted to add. Also, the fact that I realized I said somewhere in live recording that, you know, hey, wait for part 2. And then I got everything together and realized it was already a 12-minute video. So there's that. Anyway, look for the next video. That's going to be talking about other stuff. And I'll be wearing my other clothes again because that one turned out fine. I'm a mess.